Welcome to the Live from South College podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen Stockham. The Live from South College podcast is your source for all South College activity, including new student information, deep dives into our 100-plus programs and concentration, tools of the trade, and even live on location from all of our campuses. Great interview with faculty, staff, deans, and hear from South College students and alumni in their own words. From certificates all the way to doctoral degrees, catch up with Live from South College for the lighter side of helping your dreams find direction. Well, we asked for your questions, and boy, did you deliver. Financial aid is one of the biggest decisions you'll make when you have decided to pursue higher education. The choice to finish or pursue more education is a big one, and South College has a financial aid team that stands ready each and every day to help you through those decisions and your options. It is my pleasure to welcome our Executive Vice President of Student Experience, Dr. Carol Colvin, and Executive Director of Financial Aid, Ryan Kins, here to answer your question. Hey, guys.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. I'm so excited. Been looking forward to this. We ask our listeners to send in their questions for financial aid, and we got a bunch. Financial aid is likely the most popular set of questions that we get on social media. So I'd like for our listeners to hear a little bit more about financial aid, and then we can also get through all of their questions. All right, Carol, I'm going to start with you. Explain how financial aid works at South College from the first meeting to when a student starts school.
Okay. Financial aid takes advantage of the educational opportunity to make sure that students understand what all financial aid resources are available, fund sources they might be eligible for, and the opportunities that they might need to work towards in order to best finance their education. We're always looking for the best possible resources for each student based on their individual circumstances and situation. And we're working with them to educate them from the moment that they come to see us through graduation. We want to make sure that they understand if they choose to take out student loans, what those student loans entail, what repayment might look like when they graduate. And we're hoping to put together a package that is the most beneficial for a student, that is the lowest cost to the student, and that can help to propel them in their success in their career when they graduate. So from the moment that you step through the doors, we're going to set you down behind a computer and walk you through our enrollment portal, step-by-step tutorial pretty much on what all the different types of financial aid are. It's an interactive process that will ask questions about what you've prepared for, if you've been planning for your education, or if not, we'll walk through what options might be available. Then we'll walk you through the FAFSA process, making sure that if you're eligible for federal financial aid, that we're able to determine what eligibility you have. And then also looking at the possibility of eligibility for state funding resources. We want to make sure that we look at all of those free funding resources first before we start exploring loans or payment plans. And we want to make sure that you have a plan in place to get you through graduation. So we'll take a little bit more time on that front end, making sure that you understand everything, making sure that we've diagnosed all of your eligibility, encouraging you to apply for additional resources of funding as needed. And then we will explain the differences if you're starting in one program that may have a declared version, and then you have to go into an accepted cohort. There might be a price difference, and we'll talk to you about when that might occur and plan ahead for that. If you're starting in an associate's level program, but your goal is to go through and finish a bachelor's level program, we'll talk about what that process might look like. And then we'll look to make sure that you have enough financial aid to cover the entirety of your program or your educational goals, and plan towards that direction to make sure that you're okay to get through and to pursue your goal and actually finish your program of choice. And then we'll talk about what we call the repack process, which is usually it occurs 3 terms in. Every 3 terms or academic year, you have a new financial aid package. Usually that's going to entail filling out the most updated FAFSA, looking to make sure that that FAFSA represents your current financial situation. We'll ask questions about that current financial situation and ask, does your FAFSA correctly represent your current situation? If things have changed, for instance, if your income has significantly decreased since that FAFSA reporting year, we'll talk to you about what those changes look like. We'll make sure that that's represented correctly, and we'll follow the Department of Education's Federal Student Aid Handbook to walk through any adjustments that could be made. So you might have reported double the income that you currently make. We know that students oftentimes have to give up a job or a different career in order to prepare themselves for the career that they are walking into or they're educating themselves for. So we will work with them to make sure that that FAFSA is giving them the utmost opportunity that they can have available. And then we'll reevaluate that every 3 quarters, sometimes a little bit sooner than that, but we'll set those expectations up front, make sure that the student understands what to expect when we need to talk to them. And then we're always reminding the students that anytime you have questions, come back and see us. If you need to sit down with us and walk through your financial aid plan again, or if you hear about a scholarship that you're concerned about or you think you might be eligible for, or you hear about a certain type of funding that you think you might be eligible for, we encourage you to come back and talk to us, and we will walk you through all of those processes. We know that when you come in, there's a lot of information that you're taking in. You're learning more about your program. You're learning more about the expectations of that program on the academic side, from your enrollment side. And then we're giving you a lot of information on financial aid, and sometimes it's a little overwhelming. So one thing that we're very proud of in our process is that anything that you complete when you're walking through the financial aid process is always available for you to return and look at and review and ask questions about. We try to be as transparent as possible to make sure that if you have questions, you can go back and look at those documents. We can pull those up at any time, and the student always has access. And sometimes we need to involve another party, for instance, a parent or a spouse or just someone in your support system that may also have questions. And we are open to doing that, to working with your buy-in party, as we would call it, those people that are supporting you in your career aspirations. And we want to make sure that you have all of the resources that you need to make the right decisions regarding your financial aid.
Wow. Well, that was an answer. I think for anybody listening, you just want to just sort of back the audio up a little bit and listen to all that again. There was a lot of information there. All right. So, Ryan, a listener emailed this question. What's the difference between a scholarship and a grant?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kathleen. We hear that a lot here in the financial aid office. And I think the main thing to take away is that they're both monetary fund sources provided to a student that typically does not have to be paid back. A lot of times you'll think of the differences between grants and scholarships together compared to a loan. Grants and scholarships do not have to be paid back. The difference between the two, a grant is typically need-based, right? So when you do the FAFSA, it calculates your financial need based off of your income and a whole variety of factors. So a lot of times what types of grants and the amounts are based on that need calculation that's done at the FAFSA, where a scholarship oftentimes, while it can be need-based as well, oftentimes those are merit-based or based on different categories or things about you. There's scholarships out there for everything, for people that are left-handed and people that have a variety of different backgrounds and things that make you unique, all the way to the state level and everything in between. So that's typically the main thing you want to think about when considering between grants and scholarships.
Got it. Is there a scholarship for podcasters? Hello? No? Okay. I thought I'd ask. All right. All right, Carol, for Tennessee, you mentioned state options. So I want to ask specifically for our listeners in Tennessee, what is the difference between a lottery scholarship and Tennessee Promise?
So in the state of Tennessee, the lottery funds all of that Tennessee state aid. So there is Tennessee Promise, it's a grant system, scholarship system for students coming right out of high school, continuing to pursue certificate or associate's level program, and it will pay towards the associate's portion of a higher degree. And it is based on you have to maintain a certain GPA. It's based on need and what other funding that you have available. And it's a last payer scholarship. So it does require that you maintain full-time status in school. There are just a few exceptions to that you would have to get approved prior to taking less than full-time hours. But you have a mentor system where you have people that have volunteered to work with Tennessee Promise students, just reminding them that there are certain additional requirements, such as community service requirements every year that you have to complete and submit in order to maintain eligibility. Sometimes the lottery portion is referred to as the HOPE scholarship piece of that funding. HOPE scholarship does have GPA requirements. It is based on need, and based on eligibility will determine you may be eligible for Tennessee Promise and Tennessee HOPE. There are a couple of different types of HOPE, and your financial aid officer will help to diagnose which you might be eligible for. There's also a non-traditional HOPE scholarship for students that are a little bit further into the educational process, or they may have taken some time off and they're coming back, that we can look at and hope to determine if you're eligible or not. It's just the requirements, the individual requirements for maintaining certain GPA, looking at your need base, and then it's a combined scholarship packet from the state of Tennessee. So sometimes you're eligible for both. Sometimes you're only eligible for one or the other. The requirements for that are constantly being updated as from year to year on the Tennessee State Student Assistance website. And you can see that every year if there's any changes in requirements or eligibility requirements. And you can also see the amounts that change every year, what students could be eligible for, the maximum amount. And they do affect how much each other pay. So the more HOPE scholarship you get, usually the less Tennessee Promise scholarship that you get, because Tennessee Promise is a last payer. There's also, as part of that whole lottery funding bucket, there's Tennessee Student Assistance, which is a grant, and that is need-based. And there's also Tennessee Reconnect for the students that are considered non-traditional students who are coming back to complete a degree. So we will work with our Tennessee residents to determine what they're eligible for, look at those individual requirements. Not all programs are eligible for all of those types of funding. So it's a conglomeration of a couple of different factors where we're looking at your need, we're looking at your eligibility based on GPA, your state residency, and then your program to determine what all you're eligible for to make sure that we don't miss out on any of that funding for you.
Yeah. Again, I'm just going to tell everybody, just back this episode up a few minutes. If you didn't catch all that, that's a lot of info. And it's really nice to hear that there's so many options that students have. So it brings me to this question from a listener. What if my parents won't help me with a FAFSA? Can I still apply for federal aid?
Yeah, absolutely. To Dr. Colvin's point, the main benefit that we offer here at South College is we meet with every student individually. You'll have your own assigned financial aid officer, and we'll be able to talk you through your specific scenario with your family. So when if you decide you want to apply for federal aid, when we fill out that FAFSA, there's a list of questions that they will ask you that's referred to as dependency determination. And that helps us to determine if you are considered to be what's called an independent student or a dependent student. If ultimately you are considered to be dependent, that's where the information from your parents being required would come in. If it turns out, based on your particular scenario, that your parents either aren't available for a variety of reasons or just aren't supportive, because there's so many things that can factor into that depending on your family situation. But ultimately, if it's determined that your parents aren't supportive or aren't available to fill out the FAFSA, There are some parental non-disclosure options that we can go through to see what funding may still be available for you as a dependent student. And there are all types of, I don't know how much Carol would want me to get into in terms of dependency override options and various things like that that are out there. But there are a whole litany of things that the financial aid office can look at to help that individual student depending on what circumstances they find themselves in.
Yeah, got it. I mean, I can't imagine, being a young person and, all this overwhelming amount of paperwork. So that's nice to know that there are options. I got this question a lot, and listeners would like to know if you can explain the difference, Carol, between an unsubsidized loan and a subsidized loan.
Absolutely. Subsidized and unsubsidized loans are both federally funded loans. They accrue interest, but in different ways, and that's the big difference between the two. Subsidized loans are based on need, based on your student aid indicator on your FAFSA, and there is a limit to the total amount of both that you can borrow. Subsidized loans do not accrue interest while you're in school, at least at a half-time status. So when you're in school, that subsidized loan will not accrue interest until you either drop below half-time status or hopefully you graduate, or if you have to withdraw for some reason, it would start to accrue interest. Unsubsidized loans are more readily available and not looking at that need-based level to that same extent. So still limited amount that you're eligible for, but it does start accruing interest as we draw it down onto your account. So you're awarded a total amount for your academic year or for every 3 terms. It will only accrue interest as we pull that money down and pay it towards your account. So it doesn't pay for the total for the year. It pays for, or it accrues interest based on how much we've drawn down at that point. So we don't draw it all down up front. We only draw that portion that is eligible for that term, but the unsubsidized loans do start accruing interest as they are pulled down. It's one of the things that we'll talk to students about in their initial counseling. If you don't have to have all of that unsubsidized loan, if you have another way to cover the cost of your education, for instance, Tennessee Promise or one of the other lottery pieces of funding, we would encourage you to borrow that unsubsidized loan sparingly because it does start accruing interest, and to be as fiscally responsible as you can. And of course, borrow what you need to fund your education. But if you have other resources, that's one reason that you might consider not borrowing your unsubsidized loan up front, is that it does start accruing that interest.
Okay. I got a really nice letter from a lady in Florida, and she wrote in specifically wondering, I start repaying loans right away, or do I have to wait until I graduate first? Which I think is a great question.
Yeah, it sure is. And the great thing about student loans, one of the many benefits, is that there are no early repayment penalties. So if you are financially in a position, to Dr. Colvin's point, to be able to use any other fund source, you go there first. But if not, you do find yourself using those loans, whether it be subsidized, unsubsidized. If you're financially in a position to be able to make payments towards that, you absolutely should do that. And you would start with your unsubsidized loan first, because that is the one that's accruing interest. So if you do find yourself with that, any compensation that you can put towards that, you would go to that first. And then once you have that paid off, you can certainly start paying on your subsidized or any other type of loan you have while you're in school. We definitely recommend that when possible.
Yeah. Okay, and here's another question that I got several times. If one of my parents is a veteran, but I'm not, do I qualify for anything? Or what if I'm the veteran?
Might. The best way to find out is to come in and talk to us. We'll walk you through the application for veterans benefits. That, unfortunately, is not our decision. That would be the VA's decision, but we will help to walk you through the process of determining if you're eligible or not. Veterans have usually, after at least 18 months of service, and then up to 36 months to get full eligibility. Usually there is some eligibility that we're able to track down, but again, that's at the discretion of the VA, and we'll walk you through the process of determining that. For dependent students, there's a lot of different options, and we have to go through that same process to determine, did your parents transfer any benefits to you, or are there any dependent education benefits that were earned and can be passed down to you? But we can definitely walk students through the process of that. And then if you are eligible for benefits as a dependent of a veteran, there is a South College military grant that you would be eligible for. And as a veteran, whether or not you have any remaining benefits, if you are an honorable discharged veteran, then you would be eligible for our South College military grant as well. And we greatly appreciate the service of our veterans and their families.
Absolutely. That's awesome. What a nice benefit. I got this question too, and I thought this was really interesting. A student emailed in and said, I received a letter that my student loan was sold and I'm still in school. Is that a bad thing? What does that mean?
Yeah, no, that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. A lot of times students may have private educational loans that maybe they obtain through a private or third-party lender, some of which we do work with here at South College, and sometimes students will choose to pursue those on their own through a local bank or credit union. And sometimes the servicing of those loans, how that debt is serviced, will be sold to another company to be managed. So the main thing to note there is just communicate, right? There will be contact information provided in that letter, who the new servicer or lender is going to be, and just make sure you communicate with them, and they'll be able to provide any pertinent details, and the financial aid office can help interpret anything there that you may not be familiar with, to help make that an easy transition for you.
It feels like for a lot of people, they come into the situation of understanding financial aid. We're there to help or there to answer questions. But then on the other hand, there's so much information and there's so many moving pieces and parts. That's got to be really tough for both the entire financial aid team and, of course, for the student as well, because there's just so many different directions to go in. So I got this question. How do I know if I qualify for anything like a Pell grant? Do I need to know that before I apply?
You don't need to know anything before you apply. We just need you to come in and sit down with us, and we will walk you through the process. We'll help you put all the pieces together so that we can determine your eligibility for things like Pell Grant and federal loans and state aid while you're with us. We want to make sure that we explore absolutely every option for you. And we love when a student comes in and they have enough time to sit with us and to gather up all of their information. Now with the FAFSA, when you fill it out, you can move all of your information over from the IRS. So you don't have to go look for those old tax returns if you filed them. It's automatically going to pull that information over. And then all of that information, as well as some of your demographic information and household information, will help to determine what you're eligible for. And then we'll take that information and we'll plug it in and we'll put together a financial aid package for you.
Yeah, so that's a point to all of us. File your taxes. We all hate it, but it's something we have to do. And if you want to go to
Get
school,
it done.
Yeah.
definitely get it done. All right. And here's one other question that I thought was really interesting. Student says, I need to take a quarter off from school. I need a break. Do I need to reapply for financial aid to come back?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really all depends. Sometimes you might, there's a chance that you might, but there's also times where you may not. Financial aid revolves, and the FAFSA in particular, revolves around what's called the fiscal calendar, which starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th. So depending on where you were at in your financial aid year before, if you're returning back within that same financial aid year, a lot of times you will not need to renew or redo the FAFSA. But the main theme of all these questions is your individual financial aid officer will help answer that for you. We'll be able to take a look at your situation. We'll look exactly when you left. We'll talk about when you're planning on coming back and what might be the best option to find that on-ramp to get you back on towards your educational path.
To piggyback off of that, just to make sure all students know, if you are considering taking a break from school, come see us first in financial aid. Make sure that you are planning ahead. There are some fund sources that don't allow for breaks, such as Tennessee Promise. There are only designated times that you could take a break and not lose access to that funding. So you want to make sure that you're working with your financial aid team to determine when it's possible to take a break, to make sure that you don't lose funding and that all of your financial aid has been squared away. Before you take that break, if you haven't completed the process that you needed to fully fund your educational expenses for the current term or past terms, then you want to make sure all of that is squared away before you take a break, because that could create obstacles to coming back to school. So we want to make sure that we have the best plan in place, that we have everything squared away, and that you know exactly what you need to do in order to come back, and you know exactly what requirements you need to fulfill in order to maintain your eligibility for all your funding.
Yeah, that's really, really important. All right, so let's take a break from the questions. I'm going to fire a few questions at you. So, Carol, what's been the most rewarding thing about your role in financial aid for South College?
The most rewarding thing is being able to work with families and to indirectly work with families by having so many great teams that are working with our students and their families to help resolve situations and make what a student may have thought was an impossible dream come true. My absolute favorite time of the year is graduation. I love knowing the stories of those students that are crossing the stage. I love seeing those students who were completely anxious and anxiety ridden as they were coming through our offices. Sometimes there's tears, there's all sorts of emotions as students are coming through, because financial aid finances period tend to make us antsy and nervous, and sometimes we'd like to just avoid the topic rather than address it head on. And a lot of students, I think, have been to other schools where they didn't get that hands-on experience walking through the financial aid process, and so they come in discouraged, thinking that it's probably not going to happen, but I'm going to try one more time. And being able to work with those students and those families and to put everything in place and then see them continue to exceed and then or exceed their expectations and then excel in their programs, it's wonderful to see them then graduate and see just how far they've come, and then to see the hope that that gives the people around them, their support system. We have a lot of first generation college students whose families are really paying attention to what they're doing and how they're changing their lives, and they're changing their families' lives as well. So to be able to see that ripple effect as a student succeeds and as we're able to be a small piece of that and help them put those pieces together, I think that's my absolute favorite part.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, graduation is totally the best part.
I
I
love it.
love seeing students that I've seen in the elevator with their bags and their book
Mhm.
bags and their serious faces. And then you get to see them in cap and gown. And I ran into somebody last year who I saw in my building all the time. And I got to see her in her cap and gown. And it was just awesome. It was just an awesome moment to be able to hug her neck and just share in what was just an amazing day for somebody. All right, Ryan. So, same question. What's been the most rewarding thing about your role in financial aid so far? What's your story?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. I think you'll hear that across all of our teams. To Carol's point, talking to those students, during a lot of my time here at South College, I've worked on both campus and online. So I'll talk about online for a second. Getting to work with those students all across the country, students that have those very unique situations. And we talked to a lady, when I was here maybe about 6 years ago. She had just been through probably one of the hardest times in her life. She had suffered a physical injury and she wasn't able to do what she was most used to doing. So she had, tried to look into a career change. She was able to find a way to enroll with us. She's made it through her associates. She's made it through her bachelor's, and she's now getting ready to finish her master's in criminal justice. And she is getting to go on and start a whole new career now. So getting to Carol's point, to get to talk to those people from the beginning all the way through the end of that journey, we really try to make sure our financial aid officers here get to stay assigned to that student from the time they enroll all the way through to graduation, to get to help them have that personal relationship so they know their situation, they know, they have somebody here that they can lean on. And that really has been rewarding. And just to see the growth of our teams as well, all the internal opportunities that we've had for our financial aid officers, it's really been a great journey here at South College.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. What a cool story. All right, Carol, what led you to South College? How'd you get here?
I was working for another school. I had been in the education industry for about 10 years and was invited to tour the Parkside campus, actually. And when I went in, I was so impressed by what is just the simplest thing for us. It's something that we expect every day. But they showed me one of the platform classrooms where you've got the elevated seats or the tiered seats, and you've got the audio system and the whiteboard walls, etc. It's just this whole fancy learning experience from what I had seen or had been exposed to before. And the person that was touring me explained to me the importance of coming into class and being able to start class and start delivering instruction within the first minute of class starting. How important it was to make sure that the blinds could be pulled down, that the lights could be dimmed, the audio system on, the computer start projecting the lesson on the screen, and that the little pods that were set on the table for interfacing with other classrooms or other groups of students or individuals were all live and ready to go within 30 seconds to the first minute of class, because of the importance of getting that instruction to the student and making sure that they got every minute that they had paid for. And I was so impressed with the focus not only on academic integrity, but on delivering the product that we promised to the student and making sure that all of those little details came together to deliver the best experience possible. I was completely sold, and I thought I want to be a part of a team that is that focused on the student experience, making sure that everything is in place, that we are ready, and we are anxiously awaiting those students to come in and sit in our classrooms. I was just thoroughly impressed.
Wow. Now that is super cool. And it's amazing how much the educational space with that regard has changed. I know back 100 years ago when I was in college, if you showed up and the professor showed up, they locked the door so you couldn't get in. And then he would get on the whiteboard, and it was a huge lecture hall, and he'd write with one hand and erase with the other. And so you hit the ground running as soon as you got in. I love that. All right, Ryan, what about you? How'd you get to South College?
Yeah, very similar to Carol. I had worked at other education institutions before I came here. A bulk of my experience had been in online, and when South College was looking at making some adjustments to their online offerings, I was brought in to help with the financial aid side of the online division. And when I came for my tour, it was the same exact reaction. I had never seen an institution that puts the investment in resources to make sure that their students have the top-notch facilities, the best in the industry, to make them as prepared as possible for when they hit graduation to be able to go right out into the workforce and be as successful as possible from the jump. Because that's a huge part for financial aid, is to make sure that our students are going to be as successful as possible when they graduate. So that part really got me as well.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Carol, what do you do in your free time? I know you have none because I know you're very busy. And I know this because I email you and bother you with questions on other things. So I know you're really busy and you have a huge team. But when you do get those extra moments of free time, what do you do?
I have a teenager who is about to graduate from high school. So right now I'm soaking up every last minute of time with him that I can before he heads off to school. We do a lot of outside activities, mud runs, obstacle runs, 5Ks, those type things, and then a lot of community service stuff. My son has a homeless ministry operation in our area, so spend a lot of time helping him with that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Wow. How do you have time for all that? Goodness gracious. All right, Ryan, same for you. What do you do in your spare time? It doesn't sound like you have much either, but what do you do?
Yeah, fairly similar. I have a toddler. She is 3.5 years old, so that takes up the majority of my time, as you can imagine. And my wife's self-employed, so between us running around trying to make all that work, there's not a whole lot of free time there. But we love to do a lot of activities with her. We have the ability to go out on the weekends and try and get her involved in as many activities as possible. We like to volunteer at her daycare as well down here to help with some of the other parents to be able to manage those activities and the resources that they need to be able to make that work. Outside of that, I like to golf and collect sports cards.
That's awesome. But 3 years old, oh, the fun is just beginning.
That's what I hear.
Wait till she's 25 and knows everything. Then come talk to me. Oh my goodness. All right. Last question. I promised. Last question. Carol, what kind of student were you in school?
Over the top. I did everything 3 times. Super conscientious. I'm a twin. So my twin was the exact opposite. I was the type, I read everything. I took notes. I made myself test. I went back and took the test and took them until I got them all right and was over the top.
None of that surprises me.
Right. My twin brother was the exact opposite. He just flew by the seat of his pants and was just as successful. So it probably was totally not necessary, but I was go back and double check and check again and check again. So
I did not know you were a twin. So identical or fraternal?
Fraternal. It's a guy. It's a boy.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Did not know that about you. I learned something today. Yeah. All right, Ryan, same for you. What kind of student were you in school?
Yeah, as much as I'd like to not admit it, I'm probably more like Carol's twin brother. I do my best work under pressure, so I would prioritize other things and then up to the last minute cram what I needed to get in and was able to find a way to be successful. So it's a different path for everyone, but luckily we got the same result.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, but see, those are all the cool experiences that you bring as an adult to the table when you talk to all these students. Well, I want to thank both of my guests for this great information on a very, very critical topic. This has been awesome, and I hope you got your questions answered. And obviously, if you need more information, you're welcome to go to south.edu and make sure that you tap the admissions tab. And then just below that, you'll see financial aid, and you'll see a lot more information, plenty of links and great information. Thanks for listening. I want to thank both my guests, Dr. Carol Colvin and Ryan Kins. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
This was awesome. Well, this episode was a little bit different today because I wanted to make sure all of your questions on financial aid were answered. So we took the whole time today. So thanks for listening. With 10 campuses in 7 states, plus online and CBE, there's a pathway for you at South College. Hope you enjoyed this latest episode and a great episode of Live from South College. Thanks for joining me. We have so much more coming your way very soon, and I'm really excited about it. If you love it, give us some stars. And of course, you can always send us feedback by emailing us at southcollegepodcast@south.edu. Have an awesome day and let your dreams find direction. See you next time.